Welcome to In Your Element, the podcast that unlocks practical wisdom in higher education, where leadership meets real talk. I'm Brendan Hinkle, Manager of Solutions Engineering here at Element451.
And I'm Daniela Norden, Element451's Director of Customer Success and Engagement. Join us every other Thursday for discussions with everyday heroes using Element451 in enrollment, marketing, and student success. We'll unlock the practical tips to help you make waves on your campus.
In Your Element is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Well, guess what? We have a doctor in our midst.
We sure do. Dr. Skiles, how's it feel?
It feels fantastic. It really does. It doesn't feel real, like you're saying it, and I've been saying it in my head for the past few years, but hearing people actually call me it is just kind of wild.
Please update your email signature because that's really where it matters, right? That's, adding doctor to the email signature.
Yeah, and I hope you know at Engage, I will be correcting everyone that does not address you as Dr. Skiles. I'm going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, did you mean doctor? Oh, okay, cool. Just making sure. Thank you for joining us as our very first guest on In Your Element. We are so excited that we can say that it's you and for the conversation that we're able to have today. So welcome.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here.
The way we really want to start these off is to always ask this question of when do you truly feel in your element while you're working? And we know that you've been at TVCC for a while now, and you have gone through different roles. You've seen transformation in what you're doing. But when do you feel in your element with what you're doing at TVCC?
I mean, it sounds, like a canned answer, very cheesy, but I am most in my element when I am serving students. I grew up as someone who I didn't have a lot of people in my life who went to college. I didn't know what college was like. I didn't know the process and how to get there very well. And I loved school, but I had gone to a really, really big high school. I hadn't had an opportunity to be very involved, and I really didn't like high school that much. And so I found myself transitioning out of high school and going and, facing the decision to go to college. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do with a job, so I didn't know what major to pick. I didn't have money to go to college, so I didn't know how to get financial aid or scholarships. I just wasn't prepared at all. And that's the beauty of a community college, right? Is it's open access. It's an equalizing institution. It's open opportunity. But I felt really bad about I was very insecure about my decision to go to a community college because so many of my peers around me had prepared, or they were athletes and they were getting scholarships. And, the valedictorian of my graduating class went to Yale on a full ride. So that's kind of the comparison that I felt like I had to put myself up against. And a lot of my peers had money and had resources and connections to go to big, state schools, to go out of state. And I didn't have that, and they kind of looked down on community colleges and felt like I started to feel like because of their perception that if I went to a community college, I wasn't as good as them. My degree wasn't going to matter as much as theirs. I wasn't going to be as worthy of a job candidate. And so whenever people would ask me, Courtney, what are you doing for college? What are you doing for college? I would just kind of like sheepishly say, oh, well, I might just go to the community college in my hometown. And people always, were supportive, and they're the platitudes of like, oh, well, that's, a great first step. And it wasn't until I got to a community college and I got involved and I made connections that I realized how impactful and truly life-changing community colleges could be. And that my experience as a student at a community college at TVCC is really what sparked my interest in working in higher ed. And I didn't have the vocabulary as a student to say, I want to work in higher ed. I just knew that I had a really transformational experience. I had people who supported me and loved me and were pushing me to be better and gave me tools and resources that I needed to be successful in my academic career. So when I graduated, I went to a university for undergrad, and I got a call and they said, come back and work for TVCC as a recruiter. It was life changing, and it was everything that I had wanted and more. And so ever since that moment, October 9th, 2019, when my first day at TVCC as an employee, I have been in love, and I have been in my element ever since, because I get to be part of the team of people that gives those experiences and those resources to students who are just like me, who desperately needed that help and just wanted an opportunity.
You talked about it being a good first step, and I bet you didn't realize how quickly you'd run up the stairs, right? Like, whenever you think of that analogy, look at you now, right? 2019, you started working there. Here we are at 2024, and you're a doctor. That's incredible, like what you've accomplished in that amount of time. So I would say it was a pretty good first step.
Yeah, it was a great first step. It was a first step that I did not know was going, I didn't know it was going to be at the top of that staircase. I still don't know really what's going to be at the top of that, but it's been thrilling, and it's been fulfilling and exciting. And I have run quickly up those steps, but I've also tripped a couple of times, missed a step or two here and had to get back up and start over again. But I can't wait to continue to climb that and to see where it takes me.
I was going to say I have two questions, and one is that valedictorian who went to Yale a doctor? We should follow up and see, like, do they have their PhD? Because I doubt it. Um, but more serious question, since you mentioned 2019 and how long you've been there. So then my other question is, you started in 2019. It's 2024. You started as a recruiter. You're now director. It's a short amount of time for a lot of changes. And one of the changes that you brought on was bringing on Element 451. So maybe talk about how your role has changed, how the office has changed, how the tech and the tools have changed in your recruitment process since you've been at TVCC.
Yeah. I mean, everything has changed. I started off, I was, 22 years old in 2019. So, it's been a lot of life personally has happened in that amount of time. At that point, I didn't even have a bachelor's degree. So I have, personally gone through a lot of schooling in that time, and I've learned a lot in that time. But TVCC as a whole, I feel like everything top to bottom has changed. Like you said, I started off as a recruiter in October of 2019, and the entire staff from director down, were brand new to recruiting, and we all pretty much started at exactly the same time. I think maybe the director had started maybe 2 or 3 months before me. So we all were in this massive transition together. Not a single one of us had any experience in enrollment in higher education. And so we were kind of, very much in our infancy of our understanding of recruiting, our understanding of what it meant to engage students and and to work as a team together. And so we were just kind of barely getting our feet under us. We went through Christmas break and we came back, and then we all know what happened in March. And being a recruiter in a global pandemic, and being a recruiter in a rural community during a global pandemic, I mean, just talk about every single card stacked against you. We already didn't have the technology to really be reaching students. We didn't have a way to text students or to email them mass things. We had just gone through our student information system implementation colleague not less than a year before I came on board, and we were still kind of struggling through that as an institution. So we were not set up for success at all. And so we found ourselves locked out of schools without a way to communicate, without a way to really do anything. And it was very, very discouraging. TVCC had already been on a steep enrollment decline. Our previous highest enrollment numbers were in 2008.
Mm.
So, you're facing global pandemic, institutional crisis, inability to communicate. I mean, we weren't doing anything. We couldn't do anything, and it was heartbreaking because there were students out there who they had all these plans for their senior years. They had all these plans to go to college, and all of a sudden that was taken away from them, and we could have been there to pick them up and to make that happen, and we didn't have the tools. So that started our hunt for a CRM. We had asked, to do an RFP for one, and it was originally denied. We got some money to be able to purchase a texting platform. That was a band-aid fix. It really wasn't as intuitive as we wanted it to be. It it just it was like putting a band-aid on a bullet hole. We were still just hemorrhaging. Surface level, it looked like we had things covered, but it was not doing what we felt like we needed to do to serve students. So that lasted for a couple of months. And then in 2021, we eventually got the go ahead. And, we started going through all the demos and everything. And we found Element, and really were just drawn to the adaptability of the tool. Element was still pretty new at that time, too. So there was a lot of growing left to do for you guys as a company. And it felt like we were visionaries. We wanted to be visionaries, and it felt like we met a company that were also visionaries. And we wanted to be able to grow. We didn't want to buy something that we had to completely adapt everything around the tool. We wanted a tool that could adapt to what we wanted to do and these visions that we had for our strategies for our students. And it just felt like the perfect fit for what we wanted. However, at that time, we had no idea what Element would eventually turn into for us. We're still going into it thinking, okay, well, we're going to be able to text, and we're going to be able to do these awesome email campaigns and set it and forget it and segment. And we didn't realize the impact that it would have on admissions or, holistic student support moving forward. Eventually, not long after that, the director of the time of recruiting had decided to leave TVCC and pursue some other opportunities for him and his family. And I found myself as a 23-year-old who had barely been working in higher ed for a year and a half, begging for a shot to be a director. And my boss's boss at the time, I went into her office and I sat down and I said, Tammy, I know I don't have the years of experience. I know I haven't done this before, but I can work really hard and I really want to do this. Please give me the opportunity. I feel like I can make a difference. And she smiled at me and she said, I was really hoping you would say that to me. And so they extended me an interim contract, and they told me that at the end of my year-long interim contract, if I wasn't, holding up my end of this bargain, that I would unfortunately have to walk away. And I am proud to say that 5 months into that contract, I not only became the full-time director of recruiting, but I became the full-time director of admissions as well, completely restructured. In that time as an interim, I really took the reins of Element and grew it into a fully functioning platform and tool for our students from the first moment of contact all the way until they, a tool that they can leverage until graduation and, hopefully beyond, coming back as alumni. And TVCC now, a year and a half later, we're up 8% enrollment and things are beautiful.
Awesome.
We have a new president. We've had a lot of administrative turnover, and I feel like for the first time since 2019, TVCC is moving forward in an extremely healthy and exciting and fresh direction. We've got so many people who are really committed to serving students, genuinely want TVCC to succeed, and have a lot of renewed energy and spirit about our ability to move forward as an institution. So it's been incredibly rewarding to be a part of all these years.
That's
That's awesome.
fantastic. We love hearing that. We love an 8% enrollment increase. I'm gonna just prod a little bit further because you mentioned setting it and forgetting it. What's one successful tactic or example that you have in Element that you could share with our listeners, our thousands of listeners?
Well, I think the first time that I really truly got a good look at the power of a simple interaction in Element that was a set it and forget it type of moment for me was when it was our I think our second year back from COVID doing orientation. I think I had done one orientation cycle summer of maybe 20, it must have been 2021. And I mean, we had like 15 people show up to orientation, which is very discouraging your first year as director when you're an interim and you're trying to like prove to these people that you can do this, and you have 15 people show up for institution-wide orientation. That was discouraging, but I was like, it's still COVID. We're still, people are very uncomfortable. So I didn't really take it that much to heart. But the next cycle, the next orientation cycle in 2022, we were sitting at around maybe 75 people had been enrolled or had registered for both orientation sessions that we had scheduled. And I wasn't really happy with those numbers. It was still a big increase from 2021, but I was like, we should be able to do better. We've been at this for a while now. We've been back in person doing recruiting. And so I at that point was very new to admissions, and I built a very primitive segment where I just like picked everyone who had applied for summer and fall 2022. I typed up one text message very quickly that was like, hey, register for orientation or whatever, whatever it was. It was, I think the text was maybe like 2 sentences long, and I just clicked send and I forgot about it. And then 2 days later, I checked event orientation and we were at like 200. And then I was like, oh, this worked. This actually worked. And then I checked like 3 days later and we were at 250. And then, it just kept growing and growing and growing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even put a cap on the event attendees. Like, I'm going to have to cap this. And I think we ended registration with over 600 attendees across both orientation sessions. And we were so full. I mean, we had standing room only in our cafeteria. The line was wrapped around the building for, waiting to get in. The auditorium has been more packed than I have ever seen it in my entire experience as a TVCC student and a staff member. I mean, people were standing against the walls. It was full. And it was so full that we could not accommodate any more people at orientation, any more guests, which is the most incredible problem to have. And so this year, I'm planning on doing the exact same thing once orientation registration opens up in a month or two. And we had to add a third session just to, hopefully accommodate growth because, enrollment's increased. So that means more enrollment is going to continue to increase throughout our semesters, and that means more people are going to be wanting to go to orientation. So that was my biggest aha, like, oh my gosh, the power of a simple interaction, something that took me 2 seconds that I didn't even have to think about. I said it, I forgot about it, I checked on it 3 days later, and we had, embarked upon this really, really incredible growth for an event that is designed to set students up for success. So it was a huge step for our students.
I think that even taking with what you just said there, it just showcases the importance of two things, right? Meeting students where they are in the journey, right? The trigger you set was where they were actually at. And then just doing the small things, those small checkpoints, and how much power that can have. But you have to have the tools that allow you to do those simple checkpoints to automate those processes. But I think a lot of people can get stuck in their own thinking of, oh, well, that's not going to have a big impact. That's something small. Whenever most people just need a reminder to do these things, because the busyness of life, they don't think to go schedule or register for these things. And then you're just giving that checkpoint on their phone, hop in, do it, mobile responsive, everything, and then it's taken care of. And now you have the results that you were looking for. But more importantly, those students are getting to where they need to go, because of the 2 minutes that you spent. So that's really cool. That's a very, very good example.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's important too because so many of the students, especially in TVCC's population, our service area. I think I pulled numbers the other day for a grant, and we were at like 44.5% of our applicants for fall of 2023 were first generation students. So almost half of our incoming student population have never seen anyone in their lives do this before, don't have any idea of what's going on, not everything needs to be this super big, elaborate, multi-phase, super attractive
Takes
enrollment
like
or marketing
months to get
campaign.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, the impact of you just reaching a hand out and saying, "Hey, do this. Hey, did you know?" That can be way more impactful than anything that you could spend weeks and weeks and weeks planning and organizing. And, we're a small school, we're a rural community college. We don't have the resources and the staff and, the bandwidth to pull off something like that, which is why Element has been so helpful for us over these past couple of years, because we want to make big impact, but we can't by ourselves. We needed help. And using the tool for that purpose has made such a difference in our students' lives, but it's made a difference in ours as staff members. Not having to worry about how am I going to pull off this large scale communication campaign. That saves us time to turn around and reinvest that energy into more personal engagement. When we're not worrying about sending these massive email campaigns or designing communications and setting super complicated workflows and, programming or HTML or anything else we had to do before, it allows us to be people who can help other people get to college. It allows us to be more human
Yeah.
than we have been before.
And y'all were one of the first adopters of BoltBot when we launched it. And that's also been a game changer for you all, just from a time saving perspective. Can you just speak a little bit on that? Because I know that has been huge for you all from that point as well.
Absolutely. Well, I remember sitting at Engage Summit last year and listening to the product track and where everything that was going to be rolling out within the next year or so. And I had heard about BoltBot. I had seen a couple of things come out about it, and I was interested. And we had had conversations about a chatbot before. But if you've worked with other chatbots, it's so intimidating, and it's really like you have to think of every question that a student could possibly answer and then tell the bot what you want it to say. So the idea of having to maintain this as institutional policies change, it was just something that we all put on the back burner here, because it was like, we don't have time to worry about that. We might as
Right.
well just answer the questions ourselves. And so I was sitting there at Engage, and I saw they did the live demo of BoltBot. And I immediately started texting my administration. And I was like, guys, I got something. Like, we got to get on this now. And, it was like June, and I don't think BoltBot was set to roll out till August. I didn't even know if I could get a contract ready at that point. I think they were still saying, like, oh, we'll have some schools be demo schools. I think I signed up. I was like, me, pick me, demo. I want a demo, me. And immediately my administration, because they had seen everything that we were able to do with Element, were like, yep, we're jumping on this one. It's way more affordable. It was everything that we could have wanted in a chat bot. And I think people are hesitant with AI because they don't understand it. They don't know what it can do. But I took the demo that I was shown, and sat down with the vice president of IT and the vice president of student services and all of these other important people who I knew this was going to impact. And I said, look at this, like, look at what this can do for us. And everyone was like, sign us up. Like, we're ready to sign our contract. So we did, and we became one of the first adopters, like you said. It took one employee in my office 5 business days to get our knowledge base to a point where we felt like it was good enough to be on the live website, in the live environment, servicing students. And when I say 5 business days, he was not just sitting at his desk 8 to 5, programming a database. He was answering phone calls and helping students and, dealing with guests and giving campus tours. So in between, he was able to set all of that up for us, test it, make sure that it was answering things properly. And we had it live on the website. And I think I did I'm doing a presentation. No, I did a presentation just a couple weeks ago with artists, and Shane, who is from Muhlenberg. And we were talking about AI and how that has impacted our institutions. And I think I calculated that we save over 35 hours of work every single week with everything that our chatbot and Copilot, which designs, campaigns and does tasks for you as well in Element, off of my staff's shoulders.
Courtney, that's a one full-time employee.
Exactly.
That's that is one full-time employee's workload every week. That's
Yes,
insane and wonderful and awesome.
it is. Oh, it's so wonderful for us. Trust me, we know.
That's incredible. Listen, you mentioned Engage, and so Brenda and I have to hype you up here. Y'all are listening to the 2023 Captain of the Year, the first ever Captain of the Year, I want to say. I love this. You have definitely shared some tips like get BoltBot, save yourself and your staff the time. What other tips do you have for new captains or captains who are 2 or 3 years into this pivotal role, helping really change and frame the way processes work on their campuses, right? Because I think we sometimes underestimate that role, and that's really what a captain and this project manager does.
Yeah. Well, I get, so many opportunities thanks to the Element team to get to talk to new schools who are coming on board with Element or new schools who are considering coming on board with Element. And, they always ask me for advice or, what have we done that's been successful? What have we done that we have liked so much? And there's so many different avenues I could take it. But for new captains who are coming on board with Element, um, especially for those of you who previously had a CRM that you've been using for a period of time, or even for those of you who don't, I think the biggest thing is to remain open minded. When we came on to Element, we didn't have a plan in mind. We didn't have previous processes in place that we were trying to adapt to a new tool. We had a blank slate. And I think that's really ideal coming into a new piece of technology when you can just wipe it clean and say, okay, like, let's see where this can take us. Let's see how this can help us. And I truly feel like we have been able to be successful because we haven't been forcing ourselves to fit this checkbox for a product. The product is moldable to a certain extent for what you need it to do and for what your students need. So don't go into it trying to take everything you have previously done and try and keep yourself in that box for what you have always done before. Let yourself think outside of it. Let yourself step back and say, this is what we were limited to previously. This is what we've been doing previously. How can this change? How can this adapt? How can this be better? Is there a different way to do this and make this work for us? And I think you'll find that your experience adapting to a new piece of technology such as Element is a lot easier when you can take the previous function out of it and just say, this is a new tool, we're starting clean. It's great if you can pull one or two things, but don't limit yourself to what you've previously done. The sky's the limit. Element is a tool to help you get there. It's like a little jetpack. See how high that jetpack can get you. Um, and then for those of us captains who have been in this for a while, I've been an Element captain. I think this is my third year, going on my third year. Always be open minded, even if you are doing something and it's working really well for you. Go to the training sessions through Circle. Go, if you're at a conference and there's an Element session, which I guarantee you there probably is because Element goes to a lot of conferences.
That's right.
I love to go and sit in an Element session, even if it's a demo, because it might refresh me on something that I had forgot that it can do, or I might hear something in a different way, presented in a different method that all of a sudden turns on a light bulb for me. And it's something I hadn't thought of before, or something that I had overlooked, or I put on the back burner months ago. And now I'm like, oh, I have, I can incorporate this into what I'm doing. And I remember a specific instance of this. I was at TACRO, which is a Texas Admissions and Registrar Conference, and I was listening to some of the registrar ladies from Blinn College talk about their experience with Element. And I had gone to it just, hoping to support another Element user in Texas because there's a lot of us, and, I like to see what they're doing, and I've been able to talk to a lot of them. And so I was just there to support. But she didn't even talk about what I got out of the session, but she showed a screenshot of a campaign that they had written, and I saw one token that she had plugged into that email, and I went, oh, that's what that token does. And it just snapped for me, and I was able to do a lot of things with that through the admissions process just because I saw her use that token. And so I, encourage you guys, you captains out there who are veterans in this, to keep an open mind, talk to other, element users, talk to other captains, because we can really help each other be successful. And that's what we want. We want students across the board to be successful. It's not a competition. We're in this together. So
Yeah, that's incredible. One of my favorite sayings, it's a pretty common one, is be curious. And I think if you live by that, you're just going to constantly be learning how to better yourself, how to better the impact you have on other people. So I think that that's a good piece and nugget of advice to give, is just be curious. And you'll grow. I mean, if you're curious, you will constantly be growing. So Courtney, it has been great having you on. This is another tool in your tool belt, right? So all the ways that you listen to at conferences, now that In Your Element exists, make sure that once these episodes start going live, you subscribe, because it's always going to be Element users or people at Element that are giving you best tips, practices, what they're doing well. So this is just another tool in your tool belt to remain being curious. But we wanted to give you the floor one more time. Is there anything you want to tell the listeners about what's going on at TVCC? Any advice? Anything that you want to share with them that you're excited about or you think they should know?
We've got some exciting things, and TVCC, we support each other. We support other colleges. The mission is to transform lives through accessible and affordable education. And I think accessibility, especially for community colleges, that's our hallmark. That's our trademark. That's our platform, is accessibility. And so for those of you guys who are using a CRM, it's an accessible tool for us internal users as well. But I want to encourage you guys to think about how accessible you're making yourselves to students, and how can your CRM help you do that. We use it for a lot of holistic support. I'll talk more about how we use our CRM for holistic support at Engage. So I hope you're coming to Engage so you can hear that. But I want to challenge you and encourage you guys to think outside the box. This isn't just enrollment and marketing and admissions. This is a lot more. Engagement doesn't stop the moment they become a student. Engagement is the student experience. So what are you using your CRM for to ensure that is continuing throughout the student experience? And then I just want to say thanks to the Element team, because I love you guys. I adore you guys. And I'm sure, working more so on the industry side of things, that it can be thankless. And, I'm sure you guys miss working with students a lot, but know that, oh my gosh, Daniela's background. I'm sure that can end up feeling not as rewarding working directly with students, but I want to say thanks, because the hard work that you guys pour into us as institutions allows us to impact students. So what you guys are doing is making a difference in student lives. So thank you so much for everything that you guys do for us.
Man, I'm so glad you asked that question, Brendan, because that was the best answer we've ever gotten. Courtney, thank you so much. That was awesome. I also just want to say that you also quoted Taylor Swift. So I think we're 2 for 2 now, Brendan. I think we have in this episode, Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes. You had a Band-Aid bullet hole reference in our next one. So for the listeners out there, this is the epilogue. We're now keeping a tally of
see if you can pick out the Taylor Swift reference before it happens.
I was row 13 on the floor night 3 in Dallas. I am a Swiftie to my core.
You went to the Eras tour?
Row 13. If you're a Swiftie, you know.
That's amazing. I was row 713, night 1 of Philly. I was so far from the top. It was ridiculous. And it didn't even matter, Courtney. I still the energy, the crowd. I might as well have been in row 13, though it was probably a lot better. But we'll talk. This is our next podcast. We'll dive into
we'll transition from In Your Element. We'll just do an Eras tour one. Well, you all are looking at probably the only 35-year-old middle-aged girl dad dad who's a Swiftie who hasn't gone to the Eras tour.
Oh,
So
no,
Oh,
gotta go.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm trying, but the cheapest tickets in Miami right now are like $2,000 a piece. And I'm like, no, my kids would rather go to college.
Thank you guys. Thanks for going along with that. Yeah. This is awesome. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, everyone. In Your Element is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too.
Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and enrollment professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Mallory Wilsey, Artis Kadu, Maya Demishkovich, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed.
Enrollify is made possible by Element451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.